Hi everyone, TJ Mac Vintage Cards, and in today's video I'm going to do a profile of the 1981 Topps OPC set. And 81 was one of those years that I really remember collecting very well. I did buy packs in 79 and 80, but in 81 I was about 8 years old, and I just have those good memories of ripping a lot of packs, especially hockey packs. Hockey was popular where I lived, and my brother and I would have stacks and stacks of these 81 Topps cards in our room, and we would sort them during the winter months, especially on the evenings and the weekends. And it's just very good memories it brings back when I see these cards in front of me, and it's one of the things that certainly draws a lot of us to collecting. It's not the investing or anything like that. I've said many times, I'm just, in my life, I'm very try to manage my money well, and I want to have good quality things in my collection. I've always believed that. But what drives me is the passion for the cards and just the connections that they make, either historically or through the nostalgia that they bring me. So 81 just draws back a lot of good memories just beyond cards as well. I remember seeing Raiders of the Lost Ark that year with my dad, and I looked that up, and it was the highest grossing film of 1981 at $212 million. And then the second highest grossing film was On Golden Pond, which I also saw, but my mom had to drag me to that one, and that grossed $119 million. So big difference there, certainly between those two movies. And I used to watch wrestling with my grandma around that time, and I read that that was the year that Ric Flair defeated Dusty Rhodes to win his first of about 20 heavyweight championships. Now, I don't remember that match specifically, but I remember watching wrestling then. And also in that year was when Ronald Reagan was elected president. He was pretty much the president through most of my childhood. And just 3 months into his term, he was shot in the chest by John Hinckley. And it was in March of 1981. And I remember coming home from school that day, and my mom was watching, I think it was General Hospital, the soap opera, and they interrupted it to talk about the assassination attempt on the president. Unfortunately, he survived and was able to finish his presidency. But in hockey around that time, we really saw a great increase in offense in the game. We had a lot of young and exciting players coming into the league, and it was a much more open game in the 80s than what I remember growing up, it being later. And some of that had to do with just the style that the goalies played. They didn't wear as much equipment back then. They weren't quite as good at athletes as they were, generally speaking, later on. And really the style that was adopted later was, you had the better athletes, the more equipment, and they played angles a lot differently later on, and it just was to minimize space for the puck to get through. It was always the goal of a goalie, of course, is to stop the puck, but it was really becoming more of a science of how it was played, and I think it did have an impact on goals being scored later on, as well as you didn't have the neutral zone trap back in the 80s like you did in the 90s, which really closed up play. I remember, players going end-to-end, men like Gilbert Perreault there right on the end. He was one of the best end-to-end skaters, and it just was so much fun to watch. You didn't get that anymore, really, once a neutral zone trap came into play. It clogged up a lot of the space for those kind of players to excel on the ice with. So those are just some of the things. I'm sure there are other reasons. I'm not so much a hockey historian, but I just remember the game at that time being a lot more offensive-minded. Now, in 81-82 Topps hockey set, the company that year broke it into two regions. So what they did for Topps is they had a base issue of 1 to 66 cards that was around for across the country. It was available across the country. And then they had cards 67 through 132 set up in East and West. So here you see a Bobby Clark that was only available in the East packs. And then you had players from the West teams that were not included in those 66 cards that would be available in the West packs. So it was a little different then. That's how they did it in basketball too, but football and baseball didn't do that. And I think some of that had to do with the popularity of basketball and hockey compared to those other two sports. And then you had the OPC issue, which is right here. That was a 396 card issue, and that was available in Canada, and they did not break it up into East or West because hockey was certainly a very popular sport in Canada. And the difference you can see in the OPC is you have the French and English translation for the position, And then you can see OPC right here, and then versus the Tops in the upper left corner. And it was also the first year that Tops actually put their name on the front of their hockey cards, which I thought was interesting as well. And then in the back of the packs, you can see here the difference between the East and it'd be the same with the West, is you had here stars underneath the number. Let me see if I can bring it in a little bit more. You had the stars below the numbers, and then over here it would say East below the numbers. And then on the back of the OPCs, it was a little bit lighter of a card stock, and you didn't see anything below the numbers. And then you had the French and the English for the position right there. So just some of the differences. Just set the camera back up. But a lot of fun ripping these packs. There were a lot of good rookies that year, a lot of the big stars of the day. And I just enjoyed having those cards and learning about the game, which is what we did with the cards back then. So now let's dig a little bit more into the set. Wayne Gretzky that year won the Art Ross Trophy for the leading point getter in hockey. He had 212 points, which was the second highest in his career. That year he also broke the NHL record for goals. It still stands at 92 goals, and he had 120 assists. Gretzky also won the MVP that year, which is known as the Hart Trophy. That was his third of 8 straight MVPs that he won, which is just crazy when you think about it. And then next to him is Billy Smith, who was the first solo Vezina winner as the best goalie. It used to be given to the team goalies up until 1980, and then in 81 they made it a solo award for the best goalie. And then what they did is they replaced that with the William Jennings Award, which was given to the goaltenders having played a minimum of 25 games for the team with the fewest goals against in the league. So the Vezina winner could be different from the Jennings winners depending on how those goalies did as a team in allowing the fewest goals. And Smith led the league with 32 wins that year. He only had 9 losses and a 2.97 goals against, which seems crazy high today, but back then that was a very good goals against in an offensive-minded era. And then the Calder playoff MVP that year was from the Stanley Cup winning Islanders, who had won, I believe it was their third of 4 straight Stanley Cups. They're the last team to do that. And Mike Bossy was the one who had won the Calder MVP, and this is his card in a Gem Mint 10. And Bossy that year was also second in the league in points with 147 points, and he was second in the league in goals with 64 goals. 3 fantastic players right here. These are 3 of the players from the Kings that year. The first 2 here shown are Marcel Dion and Charlie Simmer. That was 2/3 of what was known as a Triple Crown line. And that year, Marcel Dion was center of that line, and he was 7th in the NHL with 117 points, and he was 9th with 50 goals. Now, Charlie Simmer was the left wing, and he was coming off 200-point seasons, but in 81-82, he was limited to just 50 games and finished with 39 points. Now, for his career, he was pretty much a point-a-game player. He had 711 points in 712 games. And then next to him, you have the Larry Murphy rookie. So the other part of that famed Triple Crown line was Dave Taylor. I don't have his card. But Larry Murphy was an up-and-coming defenseman at the time. This would have been his second season in the NHL, but his rookie card. And he was in the West issue for Topps that year. And Murphy was, he still is, 5th all-time for defenseman in points. He won 4 Stanley Cups. He won 2 with the Penguins and 2 with the Red Wings, and he played 21 seasons in the NHL. And the Kings that year knocked off the Edmonton Oilers in the first round of the Smythe Division playoffs. Back then, they would play the playoffs within the divisions, and then they would meet in the conference, and then they would meet in the Stanley Cup Championship. So the division they played in was called the Smythe Division, which was out of the Clarence Campbell Conference, which is the equivalent of the West Conference today. And they upset the Oilers, which was really pretty amazing at that time because the Oilers teams, as you know, were loaded back in the 80s, and they were really starting to come into their own. So 3 great players right here. And what a quartet we have here of Oilers greats. And Wayne Gretzky, Jari Kurri, Mark Messier, and Paul Coffey. This is Jari Kurri's rookie card and Paul Coffey's rookie card. Coffey is second all-time in NHL points for a defenseman in league history. He led the league in points in 1981-82 season with 89 points. Jari Kurri scored 601 goals in his career. He was the perfect complement at right wing for the incredible center, Wayne Gretzky. And Kurri had great hockey acumen like Gretzky had. Not as smart as Gretzky. Gretzky was probably one of the smartest players that ever played on the ice, but Kurri was a perfect complement for him because he knew what Gretzky was going to do, and he had one of those super one-timers where he can just take the pass and put a deadly accurate shot on net. So one of those guys that really complemented Gretzky well. And then, of course, we got Mark Messier, who's one of the best centers that ever played the game, and he played on the same team with Wayne Gretzky. And this year, Messier had 50 goals in 78 games. It was his first 50-goal season as a pro. So just an incredibly awesome Red Wings team, and these 4 cards just look so nice together. Here are your 1981-82 season champions, the New York Islanders. They won their 3rd of 4 Stanley Cups, sweeping the Vancouver Canucks. And here's 5 of their Hall of Famers from that team: Clark Gillies, Brian Trottier, Mike Bossy, Billy Smith, and Denis Potvin. Here is the famed Trio Grande line with Clark Gillies at left wing, Brian Trottier at center, Mike Bossy at right wing. I think it's arguably maybe the greatest line ever. All 3 are Hall of Famers. Trottier was 5th in the league that year in scoring with 129 points and 50 goals. And Gillies had 77 points in 79 games. And then, of course, I said earlier that Bossy was 2nd in the league scoring with 147 points and 64 goals. So just 3 of the greats of that time, and just incredible teams those Islanders had. Here are Peter Stasny's rookie and Michel Goulet's second year. Goulet's featured on the OPC card from that season. And it was the Nordiques that upset the Montreal Canadiens in the first round of the Adams Division playoffs. And that was a pretty big upset. And then the Nordiques had a nice playoff run that year. And they were a very talented up-and-coming team. And these were their 2 best players in Goulet and Stasny. Both are Hall of Famers. Stasny, I think, was the highest scoring player of the 1980s, not named Wayne Gretzky, of course. And he's a Hall of Famer. And Michel Goulet scored 548 goals in his career. He had some 50-goal seasons as well. Just 2 of the greats of the time, and I just love those vintage Quebec Nordiques uniforms. There's 3 of the great players from the Adams Division champions, and that's like the East Division, one of the divisions of the East Division back then. And you had Guy Lafleur here, Larry Robinson, and Steve Shutt. They were all aging at that time, but still major contributors to those Canadiens teams that just dominated the 70s and obviously wanted to carry that over to the 1980s. And just happy to have this group together. Love those red Canadian jerseys. So sharp. So I mentioned in the beginning, this set is just loaded with rookie cards. Here's 2 of the big rookies from the West set, and Dino Ciccarelli and Dennis Savard. And Savard had 32 goals and 87 assists for 119 points in the 81-82 season. He, of course, is a Hall of Famer, just like Dino Ciccarelli is. Ciccarelli scored 55 goals and had 51 assists for 106 points. He helped lead the Minnesota North Stars to the Norris Division title. And he also finished his career with 608 goals, which is 19th all-time in NHL history. And the Norris Division is the other division in the Campbell Conference, along with the Smythe. So just 2 cool-looking cards. Love that Blackhawks jersey, and love those old North Stars jerseys as well, or sweaters, as they call them. And I'm going to finish the video today with 2 cards here, second-year cards of legendary players Ray Bourque and Mike Gardner. Ray Bourque is the all-time points leader for defensemen and was also a great defensive defenseman as well. And then you have one of the fastest skaters ever to lace him up in Mike Gardner, who is also an outstanding goal scorer. He finished his career with 708 goals, which I believe is 9th in NHL history. And just, 8th in NHL history. So 708 goals, good for 8th in NHL history. So 2 legendary players here. Gartner's a little, I think, unsung compared to Bourque. Bourque's pretty well known and well regarded, but Gartner's one of those guys that you look at his stats and you're like, wow, I didn't realize he was that good, and he certainly was that. So I hope everybody enjoyed this look back at the Topps and OPC sets, and just, again, beautiful sets that I just love having representations of these cards in my collection. These are currently on display in my card room as of right now for this month. Everybody have a great day.